When we look at a modern map of Europe, everything seems permanent. Britain is an island. The North Sea separates it from mainland Europe. The coastline feels stable, fixed, final. But maps are illusions of permanence. Because not long ago, in geological terms, the North Sea did not exist. In its place stretched a vast green plain, a land of rivers and forests, a place where people once walked freely between Britain and Europe. That land was Doggerland, and it disappeared. At the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, global sea levels were dramatically lower. Enormous volumes of water were locked inside continental ice sheets. Scandinavia lay buried beneath kilometers of ice. Because so much water was frozen, the world's oceans were more than 60 meters lower than today. This exposed an enormous stretch of continental shelf between Britain and mainland Europe. Doggerland was not a narrow strip of land. It was a true landscape. Wide, low-lying plains stretched to the horizon, braided rivers carved through soft glacial sediments. Shallow lakes shimmered under open sky. Birch and pine forests grew across slightly higher ground. Hazel woodland filled sheltered valleys. Red deer grazed along riverbanks. Elk moved cautiously between tree trunks. Aurochs crossed open grasslands. The climate was warming, life was returning, and humans were already there. The people of Doggerland were Mesolithic hunter-gatherers. They did not build cities, they did not cultivate crops, they did not work metal, but they were highly skilled. They shaped flint into razor-sharp blades using controlled percussion. They carved bone into barbed harpoons. They hollowed tree trunks to create dugout canoes. They understood rivers. They understood seasonal cycles. They followed migrating herds. They fished in freshwater channels. Doggerland was rich. Wetlands provided fish and birds. Grasslands supported grazing animals. Forests offered fuel and shelter. And perhaps most importantly, it connected worlds. Britain was not isolated. It was part of the mainland. People could move freely across this land bridge. Ideas spread. Genetic lines mixed. Geography shaped culture. And Doggerland shaped geography. But the forces that created Doggerland were already working against it. The Ice Age was ending. As temperatures rose, glaciers melted. Sea levels began to climb. This rise was not smooth and predictable. It happened in pulses. Periods of relative stability were interrupted by rapid accelerations. When large ice sheets collapsed, vast amounts of fresh water entered the oceans in short geological moments. Low-lying regions like Doggerland were especially vulnerable. But there was another factor at play: isostatic rebound. During the Ice Age, the enormous weight of Scandinavian ice had pressed the Earth's crust downward. When the ice melted, northern regions began slowly rising. But the rebound was uneven. Some areas lifted, others effectively sank. In parts of Doggerland, the land was subsiding while the sea was rising. The result was instability. Rivers shifted course, sediment redistributed, peat soils became waterlogged, storm surges penetrated farther inland. The first changes may have seemed subtle. River mouths widened, freshwater lakes turned brackish, marshland expanded, communities adapted, camps were relocated slightly uphill, hunting grounds shifted inland. But the coastline continued to move, year after year, generation after generation. Doggerland was shrinking. By around 7000 BCE, the transformation was undeniable. Continuous plains had fragmented. Tidal channels cut across former meadows. Islands formed where gentle hills once stood. The narrow land bridge connecting Britain to Europe narrowed dramatically. Shallow estuaries replaced freshwater valleys. Storms pushed seawater deep into low terrain. Salt crept into river systems. The taste of water changed. The types of fish changed. Life adapted, but the land was fragile. Doggerland was composed largely of glacial sands and peat, soft materials, easily eroded. Unlike rocky coastlines, it could not resist wave energy. It yielded. And then came a geological event that would accelerate everything. Around 6200 BCE, far to the north along the Norwegian continental shelf, enormous sediment deposits collapsed in one of the largest submarine landslides known in Earth's recent history. Today, we call it the Storegga slide. Thousands of cubic kilometers of seabed material shifted. When that much mass moves underwater, the ocean must respond. The displacement generated a tsunami. In deep water, the wave would not have appeared dramatic. It would have traveled as a long, powerful swell across the North Sea basin. But as it approached the shallow lowlands of Doggerland, its energy compressed vertically. Wave height increased, speed intensified. Along the fragile coast, the sea would have first withdrawn, water draining from estuaries, mudflats exposed, birds scattering into the sky. Moments of unnatural silence. Then the wave arrived. A powerful surge swept across the remaining plains. Sand ridges were overtopped instantly. Peat banks collapsed. Wooden shelters were torn apart. Water raced across the narrowing land corridor between Britain and Europe. Even a surge of 5 to 10 meters in such flat terrain would have been catastrophic. Modeling suggests certain coastal zones may have experienced even greater heights. The tsunami did not simply flood, it eroded. It carved new channels, it reconfigured topography. When the waters finally receded, the geography had changed permanently. The fragile corridor connecting Britain to Europe was gone. Britain became an island. Doggerland, already weakened, was fatally reduced. After the tsunami, sea levels continued their steady rise. The remaining lowlands gradually disappeared beneath expanding waters. Forests were drowned. Tree trunks stood briefly in brackish shallows before collapsing. Sediment buried their remains. River valleys vanished under shallow sea. Within centuries, the North Sea as we know it had formed. Doggerland no longer existed above water. No stone ruins marked its location. No monument stood above the waves. Only peat, only submerged wood, only buried riverbeds. And for thousands of years, Doggerland was forgotten. Its rediscovery came not through legend, but through accident. Modern fishing trawlers began pulling strange objects from the North Sea, worked flint tools, bone harpoon fragments, ancient wood preserved in oxygen-poor sediment. At first, these finds were curiosities, then patterns emerged. Marine geologists mapped the seabed using seismic imaging. Ancient river channels appeared beneath layers of sand. Paleogeographic reconstruction revealed branching tributaries and floodplains. Peat cores extracted from the seabed contained preserved pollen. That pollen told a detailed story. It revealed which trees once grew there, when forests transitioned into wetlands, when saltwater intrusion began. Doggerland was no myth. It was mapped, modeled, measured, its existence proven by geology. Modern reconstructions show the transformation clearly. At 12,000 years ago, a vast green bridge between Britain and Europe. At 9,000 years ago, thriving lowlands. At 7,000 years ago, fragmentation and narrowing. At 6200 BCE, the Storegga tsunami. Afterwards, permanent separation. Britain isolated. The North Sea formed. Maps are not guarantees. They are records of balance at a specific moment in time. Doggerland reminds us that coastlines migrate, islands are born, continents reshape, and stability can be temporary. Today, the North Sea appears ordinary, gray, cold, unremarkable. Cargo ships cross its surface, wind turbines stand above it, storm systems move across it as they always have. But beneath its waters lies an ancient landscape. Ancient riverbeds still trace patterns across the seabed. Tree stumps rest in dark sediment. Artifacts of human life lie buried under shifting sands. Doggerland forces us to reconsider permanence. At the end of the last ice age, global sea levels rose more than 100 meters. Entire coastal worlds must have vanished, not only in Europe, but across Asia, across the Americas, across Africa. We remember civilizations built in stone,
But what of those built in wood? What of societies that left no monuments? How many landscapes now lie beneath